Welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls. Over the last few years, I have built a business that allowed me to quit my 9-to-5, spend more time with the ones that I love, and live my best life. Now, I'm sharing everything I learned along the way with you. Each week, my guests and I will share actionable tips, tangible advice, and honest conversations to help you build your dream business. So get ready to take notes and put in the work because this girl means business. Hello, and welcome back to another fabulous week of the Girl Means Business podcast. I am in an extra good mood today because I woke up this morning and it is not 105 million degrees outside. It's amazing. We had a cold front come through last night and some storms come through, and I think it's like 72 outside right now, which is perfect. And it's overcast, still a little rainy. It's just one of those days that I kind of love. I'm one of those weird people that I love cool, rainy days, especially when I can put on a pair of yoga pants and a comfy shirt and just kind of enjoy the weather outside, all curled up on my couch. So it's been a really, really great day. And on top of that, we have a really amazing guest today on the podcast. So this amazing lady I met in a Facebook group, and it happens to be sort of the topic of our conversation today, which is groups and communities. And one of the things that I have grown to really love about Facebook is the connections I get to make with other women. So as most of you probably know, we have the Girl Means Business Facebook group, which if you're not a member of, go over to Facebook right now. It's okay. You can hit pause and come back in a second. So head to Facebook and just search for Girl Means Business, and you'll find the Girl Means Business group. And it's a really fun place to ask questions, get advice, share tips and tricks. And one of the great things that I love about being part of groups like that is that you get to meet other incredible women who are doing things similar to what you're doing, completely different from what you're doing. You get a whole different perspective. It's really amazing. And when you find one of those groups where you can be 100% yourself, you know you can ask questions without judgment, without fear of somebody jumping in and making you feel like a terrible person for asking that question or like you are dumb for asking that question. You know you're in the right place when it's a safe space for you to let loose and just be yourself and learn from other people in that group. And so one of the groups that this lady and I are in together, we just kind of found each other. I don't even really remember what the topic was that we were both posting about, but we realized that she had a community of women. I was trying to serve or am serving a community of women with this podcast. And so we decided to get together and just share each other's story and share each other's mission and just help each other's communities learn and grow from what we're doing. So today, the lovely lady we have on, her name is Charlsey Childers. She has started a community called Always Her. And it's a place for women to be authentically themselves. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I want her to share it in her words because she describes it obviously way better than I could. But before we decided to record the podcast, and I'll be working with her in her Facebook group next week to do a live video, we chatted on the phone for a good hour one day. And it's one of those situations where when you meet somebody, and we've never met in person, we just talked on the phone for an hour, but you instantly feel this connection. You instantly feel like that if you lived in the same town, you could be best friends. And we had so much in common with just our journey and our story and what we're doing with our lives. We both have daughters that we're trying to raise in this crazy world and be examples for. We both have big, ambitious dreams and goals. And we're all about cheering women on. And so it's so fun when you connect with somebody like that. It's so amazing when you find that you have somebody else out there cheering you on and that's in your corner rooting for you. And it's just, I don't know, it's something that I really, really get passionate about. So, and again, you probably know this if you've listened to this podcast because I'm all about empowering other women and helping each other out and just I think when you get women together who are really supporting each other, amazing, amazing things can happen. So I will stop rambling now. I will let you get into the actual interview. I think you're going to love her as much as I did. And so here she is, Miss Charlsey Childers. Hey guys, real quick before we jump into today's interview, I want to remind you very briefly about one of our amazing sponsors, HoneyBook. You have all heard me talk about my love for HoneyBook because it runs so deep. I don't know how I ran my business as efficiently as I do now without HoneyBook. It is the ultimate end-all and be-all. In fact, I've had a lot of people lately I've been talking to about building out my team and adding people to my team. And it occurred to me the other day that, guys, HoneyBook is the first team member I've had on my team. It's a program, but it takes care of just as much stuff as I would probably hire an assistant to do. It tracks all of my projects and lets me know when they are in the planning phase or when they've inquired or which ones I need to follow up with, because that's a big thing. If you are letting inquiries come in and not following up with them, you're losing clients. And HoneyBook reminds me to follow up with those clients that have not booked their sessions yet. It tracks everything in one place for each client, including invoices, contracts, questionnaires, notes about conversations we've had. No more digging through email chains or text messages. Everything is in one place. And guys, having everything in one place makes your life so much easier. And easier is the name of the game in my book. The easier, the better. So if you're interested in trying HoneyBook, head on over to today's show notes at girlmeansbusiness.com/episode 22. Or you can head over to bit.ly/GMB HoneyBook. That's bit.ly/GMB HoneyBook and save 50% off your first year. That's half off, guys. That's a huge savings. And I guarantee you it will be the best investment you've made in your business this year. Again, that's bit.ly/GMB HoneyBook to save 50% off your first year. All right, guys, let's get into today's awesome interview. All right, how are you today?
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Super excited to be here. So thank you. This is fun.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here, and I can't wait for us to start chatting. So I start everybody's interview with the same question, and that is, tell me about you. Tell me your story. Tell me what brought you to where you are now and what you're doing, and then we'll go from there.
Oh my goodness. I love it. And I love how you just dive right in. Let's pull back the curtains right now.
I don't have time for fluff. We're just going to get right to the good stuff.
Yes. Hey, woman on a mission. So yes, like you said, my name is Charlsey Childers. I am a skincare specialist and I lead a women's empowerment community called Always Her. And for me and my story, I was the woman who just accepted and went along with that golden path to success. I never really questioned, going to school, getting a good job, getting married, having kids, and, that I was supposed to climb a ladder the rest of my life, and I was the mom who always thought that working outside the home actually made me a better mom. And I was always the wife who contributed financially to the household. And I thought that was, my primary role. And everything started changing for me when my 9-to-5, my career choice, the thing that I sank so much time and effort and energy into building, it started to negatively affect my daughter. She started, crying every time I would leave her at daycare. She just started, lashing out and having terrible tantrums. And for me, that brought me back to when I was a child. And I remembered, my mom missing so many of my school plays. I remember how I was always the first one to daycare and the last one to leave, and how every single Saturday was dedicated to her cleaning the house and us running errands together, because that's the only time she could do it. And, seeing her cry like that, I just decided that I do not want my kids to be raised and to grow up the same way, I did. I want to be able to give them all the time that my mom wishes she could have given me. And so with that, pretty much everything shifted. I started to think differently. I started to let go of the things I thought I was supposed to do and the person I thought I was supposed to be. And I started imagining what I wanted my life to look like, and the things that were important to me. And, through this process, I turned into the woman who fully embraces who she is and the life that I want, regardless of what people think. I turned into the mom who collects more moments and memories than things. And I turned into the wife who really just takes the time to listen and understand and get my husband rather than just assuming that my role is either this or that. It took me a while to uncover her, but I feel like I was always her. I was always that woman. And, so now my life looks a lot different. I help women to be authentically themselves by knowing and loving who they are on the inside and out. And I just feel like there is so much freedom, when we can do that and when we can be authentic. And, I think that being authentic is the key to being all, that God created us to be. And so, I really feel like that my daughter, senses some freedom as well. She wakes up every single morning and runs into the kitchen and asks me, Mommy, where are we going today? Because, she knows that we can do anything we want to do. When for so long, she had to do the same thing every day and she didn't have a choice in it. And, so now she gets to design her day and we get to design our life together. And so, yes, I came to this place where, it always was about her. It always is about her and it always will be about her.
Gosh, so many great things you just said. Like, I don't even know where to start. I love what you said about like designing your own day and that your daughter now gets to design her own day too, because I've said on this podcast before, like my currency is time and flexibility. Like when I was teaching full time, I hated that I was on somebody else's timetable and I had to be there at a certain time. I was accountable for these other people all day long. I had to stay till a certain time. And now that I'm able to schedule my own days, I've found myself with my girls, instead of saying, Mommy has to go work, it's Mommy's working for a little while, or I get to go do this, or I get to go do that. And I get to see them seeing it in a different perspective. It's not that I have to go do something, it's that I'm choosing to do something. So when I come in the office or when I go to a photo shoot or when I'm in a meeting, they understand that that's because I'm choosing to do that and not because someone else is dictating that to me. And that's been a huge game changer for me.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. That is, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I love that. And, you were talking about your daughter, she's there. She gets to see you making these choices and see you, be this working woman and be this mom and be the woman who cruises the grocery store aisles. Mm-hmm. She gets to see that. So that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and you, like I said, you brought up so many things when you were talking in my mind, and, we kind of had the same, which we've learned through conversation, and we have a very similar path through life. And my parents both worked full time when I was growing up, and my mom wasn't able to be there for all of my activities. And as much as she tried, she was running a business and there wasn't time. I mean, she worked 10, 12-hour days and we hardly took vacations. And every time I saw her, she was tired and worn out. And I have fabulous memories of my childhood with my parents. And I know that they did everything they did so that they could give me a life they thought I wanted. And I had a great childhood, but I have these memories of being in like second or third grade or maybe even younger. And I was always in the after school program at school, which was fine. Like it didn't occur to me that that was anything out of the ordinary, because when you're like 8 or 9, you don't know. And I remember at the end like I was always one of the last ones picked up, but there was one day where like I was sitting on a bench in the front of the school by myself. It was like me, the secretary, and the janitor were the only people left in the school because my mom just, I don't know if she forgot. I don't know if she was just distracted or busy. And that memory like sticks with me. And I'm like, as much as I know my mom worked so hard to always be there for me, there were those moments because she wasn't necessarily on her own time schedule that she couldn't choose to be there with me. And so when my daughters came along, and especially with my second daughter, and I was like, no, like I'm doing this my way. And also to speak to what you said about becoming the person you have always been. Ever since I quit teaching, I've learned so much about myself and who I really am that I didn't even realize I had been repressing. And this is going to sound really cheesy, but little things like I cuss from time to time, and I normally would not do that when I was teaching because I had to always be censored. And I started thinking, I was like, I think I've censored myself almost my entire life for one reason or another. And for the first time ever, not that I'm going around dropping F-bombs every 2 seconds, but if the need arises, I will throw a word out there. And I'm like, that's me. Like, and I'm going to make stupid jokes and I'm going to be goofy and I'm going to be ridiculous. And I'm like, I'm not up to date on current affairs and I'm okay with that. I know every name of the Paw Patrol puppies. I could not tell you what's going on in the news right now. And I'm okay with that.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I absolutely love that. We definitely have so much in common, with our stories and with our backgrounds. And I love what you said about, the cuss word. I mean, yes, that is such a simple thing. And, for me, wearing flats or open-toed shoes or, just wearing what you want to wear, saying what you want to say, doing your hair the way that you want to, do it. I think it's those small things that if we mask that, if we censor that, then what is the next step? Then I feel like we're giving ourselves permission to censor more of us and to, I feel like we're creating this thought and this story in our heads of, we can't say that, we can't wear that, we can't do that. And so then it just continues, this cycle. And so it might be a little thing, but I think it's, a really big thing actually.
Well, yeah. And I think it's kind of like any snowball effect. I mean, the moment you start putting yourself into this box of what either you think other people want you to be or what you think you're supposed to be to somebody or for somebody, then it just becomes this snowball effect of, okay, well, if I'm going to be this thing at this point or in this place or with this person, then it becomes, well, now I'm going to be that thing here and here and here and here. And the next thing you know, it's become your identity to some degree. And you're like, wait a minute, but I don't even like that thing, And in a previous conversation, we mentioned this, and I'm going to say it here too, is it makes me think of the movie Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. And I had this aha moment back when I quit teaching. I was like, I feel like Julia Roberts in that movie where she's always liked the kind of eggs that the guy she was with liked, whether it was this guy liked scrambled eggs, so she always ate them scrambled, or this guy liked them over easy. And at the end, she's tasting different eggs going, which one do I really like? And it took me until I was 35 years old when I quit my teaching job and I started actually doing things that I wanted to do, that I was like, who am I? And what do I like to do? How do I like to wear my hair? And what do I like to do for fun? How do I want to spend my days? And it's incredible once you're able to let go of you trying to fit yourself into other people's boxes for you.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think it's not intentional that this happens. Our parents, they, like my mom, she was a single mom. She, left an abusive relationship, and she made it work, and she climbed the corporate ladder, and she did the best for herself. And she is so admirable and inspiring for doing all of that. Unintentionally, I felt like I had to follow in her footsteps. I felt like that was my, only option. And so, whether it be eggs or cuss words or, our careers, something bigger than that, I think it just happens, unintentionally. But if we're intentional about the things that we like, then I think we will be, I guess, less prone to put ourselves, in the box. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think too, it was a big change for me when I had my daughters. And not to say that if I had had boys, this would be any different, but you have a daughter, so you probably get this too. Like, I started thinking about, what do I want them to learn about being a woman? What do I want to teach them? What example do I want to be for them? And that was a big change for me when I was like, okay, I don't want them to feel like they're having to put themselves into a role or a box or someone else's idea of what they should be, even if it's my idea. Like, I want to teach them to think for themselves. I want to teach them to stand up for the things that they want to be and the person they are. And I can't teach them that if I'm not doing that myself. And so that was this light bulb moment for me where I was like, okay, I have to lead by example until they're old enough to understand the conversations we're going to have. But in the beginning, it has to be them seeing that, like yesterday, it was a Sunday, and Sunday's like family day. And so everybody was kind of doing their own thing. And I was like, you know what? I want to read a book. So I sat down and on the couch for like an hour, and I read my book. And my oldest daughter came by and she was like, what are you reading? What's it about? And I've been trying to get her to read more. She's in second grade. And I was like, you need to be reading every night, and we're going to read these chapter books now. And she hasn't had a whole lot of interest in the chapter books. But when she saw me reading a book, and she was like, well, what are you reading it for? And I was like, because it's interesting. It's an interesting like mystery. I want to know what happens. And she was like, oh, okay. And then the next thing I know, she's in her room reading a book too. So just knowing that they were watching everything I was doing was like, oh, okay, I need to really be like the person I want them to see me being, if that makes sense. Like, again, not trying to put myself into what their version of me should be, but I wanted to make sure they were seeing the honest, true version of me and not this like pretty facade or the, version of me that feels censored in some way.
Oh my gosh. That is so good. I love that. I love it.
Okay. So let's talk more about your group that you started. So it's called Always Her. Yes. And tell me how that came about and like the base behind it, the purpose behind it.
Yes. So great question. So the short story of how it came about was, of downward dog when I was doing yoga. But the backstory behind it was, and I'm sure you can relate. Let me know if you can, through the getting married, the starting our career and building our career, just through the seasons of having kids, I just was so focused in where, I was going and trying to do all the things and do the best, that I could. And once I started to take a step back and to think differently and look at my life and really, evaluate what I want out of life and, the legacy that I want to leave, it dawned on me that my friendships and the community, a community of women, like I didn't have that anymore. And, so just through the whole process, I realized how much of not only a community of women that I was missing, but some women to stand behind me and perhaps even tell me, way earlier on that you can do your own thing. you can follow, your passions. You don't have to just follow suit with something because, somebody else modeled it for you. You have a choice. And so really I decided to create the thing that I needed, not only in that moment, but for what had been years beforehand. So yes, that's a story about Always Her.
That's so I can relate to that 1,000,000% because when you go through those phases of life, you get married, you start a job, you start a family, and you realize that the friends you may have had up to that point, either you no longer have things in common or you've moved to different places geographically and you're not in this, able to connect as much or whatever the reason is. I remember waking up one day and thinking, I don't have my girlfriends anymore. I used to have this circle of friends around me and we've all kind of gone our separate ways. And I know that a lot of it's just life. And when you've got a job and a husband and kids, you don't have much time for other things. But and that's why I've built both my businesses, my photography and my education businesses all around women. I don't think that there's any other way to compare what women are capable of when they come together, because amazing things can happen when you get a group of women together. And I love what you said too about you created something that you needed. You didn't just create it because you felt like someone else needed it. You created what you saw was missing in the space and you made it happen, which is incredible. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So you created this group, you have a website and you have the Facebook group, correct?
We have a website, a Facebook group of 600, like-minded women. We have a blog, we have a newsletter, and we're on Instagram.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, you're everywhere. So tell me how you started building up that community, because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to start this. And it's you and maybe a couple of your girlfriends. But how do you go from a handful of your girlfriends to a community of 600 plus women?
Ooh, you were so good at asking questions. Such a great question. So when I started it, I think it's really important, to get behind the mission. Why was I creating this? What was what was I looking for? What is the type of vibe I wanted to be around? What type of women inspire me? Just asking myself all of those types of questions. And so, one by one, I would ask, my girlfriends to be part of it. And then, I started asking them, well, what type of community of women, would you like to be part of? What, inspires you? And so I just started, digging a little bit deeper and just asking questions. And then, before you know it, we have 600 women.
That's so incredible. I love that. And I think that women can identify when something feels natural as opposed to something forced. There's been businesses or groups that have been started that you can tell there's a vibe that's I'm here to profit off of you, or I'm doing this for X, Y, and Z reason. And if it's not genuine and if it's not authentic, I think that really comes through. And so to go from this idea that you had to this group of 600 women who I've been observing for the past couple of days now, in the group. And I'm these are women who trust each other. These are women who are willing to open up and share with each other. These are women who are supporting each other. And that doesn't happen unless the why behind it, like you said, is genuine and authentic. So my next question would be kind of gearing this towards someone who might be thinking about creating a community around their business. It's one thing, like I said, to create the group, get people in the group, but how do you create a space where women feel comfortable, or anybody feels comfortable being part of the group, contributing to the group? Because again, it's one thing to click join the group. It's another thing to be active. It's another thing to be involved and ask questions or share something personal, or respond to somebody and be a friend to somebody that you don't know, you've never met before. So how did you cultivate that? How did you get people to feel comfortable starting to participate?
Oh my goodness. First, I do want to say thank you so much for your kind words and compliments about the Facebook group and what you've observed. That
definitely
means a lot. So thank you for that. And then to answer your question, I think it starts, with us. If you're looking to create a community, why do you want to create it? What type of, whether it be a Facebook group or a local event or whatever, the platform is, why do you want to create it? What, like you said, it has to come from a genuine and authentic place. It can't be, it can't be forced. There can't be like, another motive, attached to it. And then really, okay, so next step, what type of community, what makes you want to be part of Facebook groups? When you go into a Facebook group, what makes you want to get the heck out of there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. I know several that I get the heck out of there.
Right. Like what, I think it all boils down to awareness of what, being aware of the things that you like and the things that you enjoy, because your vibe does attract your tribe. And if you feel it, or if you're struggling with it, you're not going to be the only one. And so, just continuing to dig a little bit deeper into, the environment that you want to create and why you want to create it.
Okay, so I just wrote this down because I loved it when you said this. And I don't know if this is something that you have quoted before, but I'm definitely going to share it. So you said your vibe attracts your tribe. And I think that is like so profound because it's true. Again, you can tell within like a couple of minutes, you join a group or you go to an event or a networking event or group or whatever it might be. And almost right away, like, does this feel like some place that I can be part of? And if it is, that's great. And you want to get involved. If not, you're like, I'm out, And so I love that. Your vibe attracts your tribe. That's so cool.
Yes. And I think, so the mission and the vision behind Always Her is for it to be the source of the inspiration for 1 million positive, strong women to be unapologetically themselves in all that they were created to be. And so at the root, the root behind the mission and the vision is encouraging women to be authentic and to be themselves, so that they can, be the person that God created them to be. And so really, if you think about authenticity, so once you figure out like what you want, perhaps it's easier to boil it down to a word, whether it be joy or, I don't know, I can't think of any other word. Love, and so what exactly does that look like? What does it look like to be, authentic? And just like you said about your daughter, being the walk, like if I want to lead a community of women and encourage them to be more authentic, then I gotta be authentic. I gotta, put it out there. I can't, paint this facade like I have it all together because quite frankly, I'm too much of a hot mess to even be able to pretend like I have it all together.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, when I started this podcast, there's a lot of other podcasts I listen to that are very polished and very refined, and they're fabulous. And there's tons of great information within that, but that's not me. Like, I'm not polished. I'm not refined. I'm rough around the edges, and I tell you like it is. And so there's been times when I'm recording or I'm interviewing somebody and, someone's kids pop in or I was recording one episode in Vegas on vacation, and the housekeeper came and knocked on the door, and like I had to go answer it and tell them not right now. And I left that in because I was like, I want people to listen to this, and I want them to understand that this is not me sitting in some fancy office in some nice building somewhere separated from the reality of the world. This is me usually recording in my closet or in my bedroom. Today, I happen to be in the actual like spare bedroom office of our house. And there's at any second, my 3-year-old could come busting in the door. And when I'm wearing yoga pants currently, like this is reality. And I think that there's something really comfortable and refreshing about that right now. And I think that in communities and groups of women, if you're trying too hard to look perfect, you're going to like alienate yourself from a large portion of the people you're trying to reach. And so that authenticity and that raw realness is very much needed and very much appreciated, I think, in those circle of women out there right now.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So well said. And when it comes to cultivating community, you just admit it, like, I am real. I am rough around the edges. You just listed these things, and there are boss babes out there who are craving that type of energy, who need that permission to be that way too, because they have, suppressed it or covered it up and so going back to your vibe attracts your tribe, you being that way is going to help and inspire somebody else. But if you covered it up, and if you were focused on, being refined and being if you were trying to be the person that you're not, then it's not only not serving you, but it's not helping, other women. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Okay. So this leads me to my last question for you, which is, when you have a group of 600 plus women together in one space, and they're all sharing and they're all asking questions and getting and giving advice and getting to know each other, there's going to be some frustration, some comparison, some hurt feelings, and coming from an industry and teaching where it was primarily women that I worked with, there was always some kind of drama involved with somebody and something someone said. So how have you had that be an issue within your group? And if you have, how have you approached it?
That's deep, girl. That's deep. I like it. Don't come over here talking about the weather. Let's talk about this.
There's no surface conversation here. We're diving deep.
To be honest with you, and I do not say this from bragging or boasting, because I definitely, like I said, don't have it all together. But no, I have not. Fortunately and thankfully, I have not run into any issues, when it comes to comparison. I think it all goes back to, your vibe and the, what you're trying to do, the community, so if not expectations, but perhaps if the mission isn't clear, if, perhaps the, I don't know, if the women aren't getting fed enough, then perhaps that is an opportunity for negative emotions to creep in. And I'm not saying, perhaps, there is a woman inside of the community who is comparing herself or, thinking negative thoughts about somebody else. But I think it just all goes back to your vibe and back to, your mission of what you're trying to, create. And I think it's, somewhat natural for us women to have some level of comparison and, have a tendency to compare. ourselves to others, but if we can, pull down the walls, pull back the curtains a little bit and kind of show like what we're made of, what we're here to do, then perhaps that will, I don't know, perhaps that'll kind of close the gap with comparison.
That's something at the beginning of that I just had a visual in my head I have to share. So you said that you feel like if people or if women aren't being fed in some way, that they tend to fall into that comparison or the trap of getting frustrated with other people and starting drama. And it makes me think of like when someone gets hangry, when you haven't eaten in a while, you're going to get hangry. And I'm like, it's so true. If I look at some of the moms groups I'm part of, when all the drama starts, I'm like, this person needs attention. This person has not been fed today in the social media or in their real life in some form or fashion. And now they're hangry and they're lashing out on some stranger on the internet. And so true. So when you said that, I was like, that was the visual I had in my head. It was like some, not having enough to eat and getting just like annoyed with somebody.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is so good. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. We'll be diving deeper into this whole idea of comparison, next month in September. And so, perhaps this will, come up more of why we compare and if we're comparing and just bringing all of this to surface. So I might have to steal what you said. I love it.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that. So let's tell everybody real quick about what we're doing next week in your Facebook group so that they can join us and we can continue this conversation with them over there.
Yes. Spoiler alert. Next week inside of the Always Her Facebook group, Kendra and I will be, pretty much chatting just like we are now. And we'll be talking about, balancing comparison and inspiration and what that looks like. What is the difference and why there is a need for both. So if you're somebody, if you're listening to this podcast right now, and if that interests you, and if you would just like to be part of the Facebook group in general, I would love for you to join us next week. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so the Facebook group is called Always Her. So you can search it. And then I'll also definitely link to it in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, just head over to today's show notes and you'll have that, or I'll have it linked there. And then you can join us on October 4th. And we'll be broadcasting it'll be 10 a.m. Central Time. So adjust accordingly to your time zone. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Wait, was that the right time?
September 3rd.
September 3rd. Okay. Yes. Sorry. I had the wrong date. September 3rd. Yeah. I even wrote down October on my paper. I'm like in the wrong month on the wrong day. Clearly I might be hangry. I don't know. Maybe I need to go get a snack. Okay. So so join the Facebook group. And then next week we'll be sharing all about comparison. We'll be talking more. I will have eaten beforehand so that my brain is functioning properly. And we're going to continue this conversation and we're going to have part 2 in a couple of weeks. So make sure you subscribe to the Girl Means Business podcast. And that way you get notified when our next episode with the two of us goes live in October, and you can listen to part 2 of the interview then. So thank you so much for chatting with me today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun. And what you have, this podcast, is just amazing. Us boss babes, we're trying to do it all and juggle it all. And, we got to lift each other up and fan each other's flame in the process. So
absolutely. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Charlsey, for joining us on this episode of the Girl Means Business podcast. I hope those of you listening enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. Her enthusiasm and her excitement and her passion is just contagious. It's incredible. I love talking to her. And yes, she and I will be chatting again next month in a couple of weeks. So make sure you tune into that coming forward. Subscribe to this podcast so that you can be notified when new episodes go live. And a quick little apology for me from the ending there, because I don't know, my brain was in some kind of funk or a fog. It was scrambled. It was a long day and I was tired and I think I just was not working properly. But we are doing a joint Facebook Live in her Always Her Facebook group next week on September 3rd at 10 a.m. Central Time. And we're going to be talking about all things comparison and inspiration and how to draw inspiration from situations rather than comparing yourself to somebody else or something else and allowing it to affect you. So it's going to be a really great conversation, and just join her tribe over on Facebook, because it really is one of those amazing places where you immediately can tell the tone of the community that she's created, and it's just a really safe space for women to share their lives and their journey. It's not just for women in business, it's for women in general of all walks of life. So there's definitely something for everybody in there. And if you head to today's show notes, which is girlmeansbusiness.com/episode 22, you'll find all the links to her Facebook page. And then again, I'll have on there the date and time for that Facebook Live, because you're definitely going to want to catch on to that. All right, guys, that does it for this week. It's another lengthy episode. I really am trying to get them down a little bit shorter. I know that a lot of y'all are really busy and you don't have time to listen to hour-long podcasts. So I'm trying to cut it down shorter. Unfortunately, that means a lot of times that our Listener Lounge questions are getting cut. But keep sending me your Listener Lounge questions, because we will have weeks that I can share those where the episodes and interviews are a little bit shorter. It's just the interviews are so fun. I love chatting with other women and I get a little carried away sometimes. So those tend to run a bit longer. But next week we'll have a little short episode, and maybe I can throw in one of your Listener Lounge questions. So make sure you keep sending me those through any of my platforms. Email it to me, send it through Instagram or Facebook, whatever is convenient for you. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week. I will see you back here next week, same time, same place. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you never miss when a new episode goes live. Then head over to iTunes and leave a quick review to let other people know just how much you loved it. Thanks, ladies. See you next week.